The Media and Digital Platforms Market Inquiry kicked off its month-long public hearings in Pretoria today. The Competition Commission launched the inquiry last year in a bid to analyse the distribution of media content on South African digital platforms and the advertising technology markets that connect buyers and sellers. Over 40 stakeholders, including mainstream and community media, digital and online platforms, are expected to participate, with SANEF kicking off proceedings. SABC News economics reporter Katlego Legodi has more.
Developments within the media space coming under the spotlight today as we see the Competition Commission kicking off day one of the Media and Digital Platforms Inquiry, whereby we'll see a different of those stakeholders, about over 40 of them appearing before this particular process and ensuring that they give some submissions around the developments within this space. Today, we are seeing day one being marked by the South African Editors Forum, National Editors Forum, this being SANEF, just in the hot seat, giving an account of developments and what they've been picking up in the media space as they go about their day-to-day operations. I'm going to bring into the conversation with us this afternoon the chairperson of SANEF, this being Mr. Sbu Ngalwa, who'll just give us a sense of your presentations here. We see you really getting a panel and putting a panel together to go into the integrities of where we find ourselves now, the developments within this space in line as well with the Constitution, and how then you'd like also the Competition Commission here to move in helping to transform this particular sector. So welcome to the SABC. Maybe give us a sense of how important was it for SANEF to form part of this process here?
Thank you very much. The reality here is that I think this market inquiry comes at the right time. And actually, it is quite necessary in the South African context because the news media, not just in South Africa, but the world over, is facing challenges. We know the issues of traditional advertising and traditional revenue sources dwindling, but also we've seen big tech and platforms like Google, Facebook, X, coming onto the fore and also actually generating advertising through our content, which they're using it for their benefit and not sharing with ourselves. So I think as SANEF, what we thought to do was to first foreground the media in terms of the importance of the news media in a constitutional democracy and also in the promotion of democracy. But more importantly, to lay the ground to point out as to what is the current status of newsrooms in South Africa. And we know this from research that has been done, that between 2008 and 2018, the number of journalists in this country halved. And there's new research that will be coming out that actually talks to an even further reduction in those numbers. We know that newsrooms are not investing in new skills in journalism because they simply do not have the money to do that. But where does the money go? You have these tech platforms that are not just social media platforms or search engines, but also they control the advertising, where about 80% of the advertising goes to these platforms. So what we're saying is, SANEF, are the following things. There's a submission we've made, which is quite comprehensive, and there's a number of things that we're saying. And I think the few ones that we want to highlight is the issue of credible news. We argue that the access to news should not just be seen as an issue of competition, but actually as a constitutional imperative. And there have been a number of rulings and pronouncements by the various courts about the importance of the media, whose rights are actually enshrined in Section 16 of our Constitution. We are also saying that these platforms have to be transparent in terms of how their algorithms treat our content and how this content lives in their systems, because we don't know how that happens. We also do not know how we can use some of the data that they collect using our content to actually better our chances of, one, sharing the content that is relevant, and two, how we can monetize some of that content. And I think the other issue that is important is that we have an issue of disinformation, fake news and content being shared on various platforms. We say that if the platforms, because that's where the eyeballs are, we're not saying that people should not go to the platforms. They must go there, but the platforms should have an obligation to actually prioritize news content, because news is not just about commercial value or entertainment. It's actually a constitutional imperative. So that's why we say that should also be prioritized. And I think the issue of fair compensation is another important point, because publishers, it costs money to do journalism. You were sent out here to cover this story. You had to pay fuel, you need to pay salaries for people to come out. But this platform just use that content without compensation, but they do get money through advertising. We believe that platforms should share some of that money, and they should actually compensate news publishers fairly. How do you arrive at the fair value? That is why we're asking this commission to actually, in its recommendations, that research be done to determine how much value these platforms derive from news content. And that's not new. It's been done in the United States. It's been done in Switzerland. Yes, the platforms are disputing the methodology, but the reality is that it is necessary for our local content as well.
Yeah, and Mr. Ngalwa, before I let you go, I mean, we see X, for instance, even the commission raising concerns around X being one of those platforms that were meant to be here. It's a very big engine, a big machine in terms of what has been happening. And like you said, it's linked to most of these news and media houses. They're not here. They're not going to be forming part of this process as we understand it. What would be your reaction? Is this somewhat of a missed opportunity? How would this actually then compromise this particular platform going forward?
I think it's quite unfortunate that X chose not to participate or to present themselves at this commission. But I think it also talked to how X has been behaving in recent years since the acquisition of X by Elon Musk. I mean, the point here is that another issue this highlights is the danger of having these powerful social media tools in the wrong hands, and the implications that has, not just for a South African context where X refuses to come, but also issues of abuse of journalists, particularly women journalists on social media platforms. There was a time when one could call on X through their local representatives to make a complaint about one thing or the other, but the reality is that those offices have been closed down. Now you have this platform, and it seems like anyone can go in there. There's unbridled access where you can share hate, you can share disinformation without any particular safeguards. And I don't think that X doesn't know the issues that have arisen through this platform. That is, I think, also is why it is important for commissions like this one and other authorities the world over to actually put in the necessary guardrails that will be to the benefit of the public, where they are not just left to the whims and the devices of the social media platforms.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. These are, of course, public hearings that started today, and we're expecting them to continue for a month. But you're hearing that different role players are coming forward now to really give the commission just some ideas on how we can regulate or better move around this space in ensuring that it's equitable and everyone else get to benefit. But also there's that incentive around ensuring that there's credibility in the protection of news. I'm Katlego Legodi for SABC News.